used as evidence. Call connected.
No one can get to my age without being affected by the drugs war. I've had friends die of heroin overdoses. I've had, friends become addicted to speed for a decade. And I myself, I personally take drugs. I don't think that there's anything wrong with that, and I don't think I should be criminalised for that. So, from a personal perspective, I'm campaigning on it, but obviously I've been hit by the war on drugs and the effects that it's had on family and friends.
The people that live and work around here who have to put up with this all the time. I could spend all day, 2 hours, 3 hours with you now, walking around the streets, showing you where injecting happens. You could walk down any of these side streets, any of these laneways and alleyways, and you'll see injecting equipment. And it's everywhere. We'll walk down a little bit further down the street here and we'll see a place where it's frequented in terms of people using drugs. It's a very public thing here, and despite saturation policing, it's as bad today as it's been for the last 10, 15 years. We're not making any progress. In fact, what we find is that when the police come down and they hit the streets hard, it pushes the issue to other areas. It displaces it. We get people ringing, complaining in new areas where there aren't services available. Consequently, it makes it even more difficult. Here's another poor person affected by drugs on the street.
Unfortunately, as is the case, most drug laws are used against our poorest and our most vulnerable. And we see this not just in Australia, but around the world. Drug laws affect the most disadvantaged.
The way we treat our Indigenous people has been quite deplorable, and the impact of the war on drugs is another example of that.
Our jails are completely overpopulated by people on drug-related offences. The Aboriginal population is represented 4 to 1 compared to non-Aboriginal people.
So this is a common sight here?
Yeah, all the time people are having bad reactions to drugs. See, people take multiple drugs. They take whatever they can get. Sometimes it's heroin, sometimes it's speed, sometimes it's benzos, oxycodone, Oxycontin, and of course eventually they're going to get a bad combo. They're going to get something which reacts, quite badly. And we have people here with mental health problems. We have disadvantaged people, homeless people, people with multiple and complex needs. Services turn their back on them because they're so difficult to deal with. Yet if they had an injecting facility here, the people in the injecting facility, the counsellors, the workers that work in those facilities can actually help people. They can develop a relationship, they can ensure that they stay safe, they can avoid overdose and bloodborne viruses, and then they can work on all of the other issues that a person may have, such as homelessness, such as lack of employment.
They talk about a lucky country. It's not lucky for some, and it shouldn't be about luck. We lived here quite comfortably in a traditional lifestyle.
We got to try and change that stupid law. How they want to try and control us as we walk this planet, you know. The weed is Mother Earth. We all got connection to Mother Earth, and wish the law would understand that. It's all about sharing and caring with each other and having fun and gathering. And not what the weed does. It brings a lot of people together. And we enjoy each other's company when we can sit down and smile and have a smoke with each other. Go away. For me, I had to give that weed up after 40 years of smoking it. It was my medicine. It was my connection to this planet. But it was a stupid law which stopped me from smoking the weed, all right? And it's very sad, because I love it. And majority of yous love it, don't you? And travel safe on this big journey we're on, all right? And free the weed and change the law.
How do we change the story? How do we teach them that being someone who enjoys cannabis for whatever reason, for medicinal reasons or for relaxation or purely because it just makes the ironing more fun? We heard our former Prime Minister just recently say, you know, we may have lost the war on drugs, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't keep trying. We constantly hear them say we can't arrest our way out of this ice epidemic, for example. However, they keep trying. We're seeing them, in one hand, say the right thing, you know, medicinal cannabis should be available, but then on the other hand, they create legislation which ensures that medicinal cannabis will not be available.
I went to a medical conference in Sydney and I spoke to a lot of doctors and I asked them what they thought about medical cannabis. Consistently they said that they would love to prescribe it, but they're scared. They're scared of what their colleagues will say, they're scared of what the medical association will say. They don't want to be the first one to come forward.
The federal government has gone out of their way to block double-blind studies, and this is one of the reasons why it's been slow to be picked up by mainstream medicine. Also, we're all swimming in the same cultural soup that has been contaminated by 120 years of propaganda, which is almost 180 degrees wrong all the time. The stigma that's been attached to the medicine is shared by most physicians who don't get any training about the endocannabinoid system. And it's impressive when you sit where I sit behind the doctor's desk and the patients come in with serious medical conditions that have benefited or will benefit from cannabis. As I've told my wife and many other people, I've never felt more like a physician than I have since I've been doing cannabinoid medicine.
Ben Oakley suffers from stiff person syndrome. The 21-year-old relies on cannabis oil to stop painful spasms.
2 and a bit years that I've been on medicinal cannabis, I've only had 3 spasms.
He'd had more than 600 the previous 2 years.
But it's still too hard to find a doctor who'll prescribe the medication in the first place.
We want to make supply available, but it has to be legal.
It means the seriously ill need to turn to black market suppliers, as Ben has done with Jenny Hallam.
I just want a supply to be available to people who need it. That's the most important thing to me. The government keeps telling us that medicinal cannabis is available, and so people are out there trying to get hold of it, but they can't because there is no access. So to do what I did, I basically did what I thought I had to do, just to help people try and get through until a legal supply was available.
Like thousands of Australians, the Oakleys source their cannabis from the black market. Adelaide producer Jenny Hallam was helping them until her home was raided in January.
I knew exactly what they were there for as soon as I saw them walking up. As soon as they came to the door, I said to them that there was cannabis and cannabis oil on the premises, that it was used to treat people that were sick and dying, and that anything that they took that day could result in somebody's death. I told them that, and they still walked into the house and they still took the oil, and it has resulted in somebody's death.
Following federal changes last year, the state government is trying to make it easier for doctors to prescribe the drug.
They are going to move too damn slowly. Malcolm Turnbull has turned around and said, you need to wait. It could take 7 to 8 months. I don't have that.
Many people have died waiting to access medicinal cannabis. There are people that were too scared to break the law, and so they were waiting for a legal supply, but they didn't have time and they've lost their lives in the meantime. People that have decided to use it, they're doing so in desperation, but are being treated like criminals because of it. But what the government doesn't seem to understand is we only get one life, we only get one chance at it, and they just don't seem to get that.
If it wasn't for Jenny Hallam, I wouldn't be here. Well, Mum and Dad thought they were going to have to bury me. So Jenny came at the right time, and the angel she is saved my life.
I could only watch between 10 and 20 seconds of the video before I had to turn it off, because it reminded me very much of what I had gone through when I first had my pain condition, and I was devastated to see what he was going through. So I reached out to his father and said that I had something that I thought might be able to help. Miraculous results almost straight away, and he's just been doing fantastic ever since, and he's continually getting better.
This is life-saving. It changes people's lives for the better. I just don't understand why the politics is letting it down.
We've got to address the fear that they keep extolling, the fear that they keep pushing. It's not there. You know, our crime rates are at their lowest in history. The drug war always has been a go-to move. You know, let's stop those drug criminals, let's stop those people breaking into our houses and stealing our cars, when it's actually not the case.
They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists.
Let's build that wall to stop the Mexicans bringing in the cocaine. Well, in actual fact, we all know that the basics of supply and demand is when there's a demand, there will be a supply. So it's a false story.
Until we get a regulated, controlled environment where people can access drugs, we're going to have the same old problems. We're going to continue to pour billions of dollars into law enforcement, hoping that the problem will go away, but it's not going to go away.
It's not about going back to some mythical time in the 1950s where everyone had a job on a factory floor and everyone had a white picket fence, which is what the Trumps are saying with Make America Great Again. I actually think that the horse is bolted on this. When you've got California, the 5th largest economy, legalising the adult use of cannabis, you can't stop that. When you've got Canada, one of the first G8 countries, going down the path of legalising the adult use of cannabis, Trump is not going to be able to peddle his myths around cannabis use and around drug use. It's not going to work. Locking people up for non-violent drug offences is not working. We cannot afford that. Even those conservative states saying that there is an alternative, Trump's not going to be able to win that. I think he will keep trying, but I think it will be a losing battle.
And Australia, what do you think the immediate future will bring here?
We know that there are hundreds, if not thousands, of compassionate growers around the country. The police are getting less and less interested in taking court action against those people. The law will have to meet their demands. In Victoria, for example, we have a state government moving towards growing their own medicinal cannabis, but they are fast coming to the realisation that that's not enough and that there is money to be made in their pot hills.
Hey, where's Paul?
What are we looking at here?
Here we're looking at the public display of our breeding program, of the different varieties of hemp we're growing, for different qualities, different stature. These are more about stature. For a lot of people, it's the first time they'll see live cannabis plants like this. And so we're very excited about that. This is really the hemp industry touching mainstream.
There is a better way forward. And I think for the most part, Australians understand that.
Fiona will be the spark towards drug policy reform. I think Parliament has been waiting a long time for someone like her.
You can't help falling in love with a woman. She's the most pro-cannabis politician we have in the country. She doesn't hide away from the fact. Our fight, like gay rights in the 80s and 90s, where it was illegal to be gay, there was laws there, there was draconian laws there, really getting in people's business.
The homosexual liberation movement has gained strength during the past 5 years, and it seems that public support has grown with it. They'd be surprised at any liberalisation of the laws in New South Wales. The South Australian reform is one model, but it's not necessarily what homosexuals would like to see in this state.
There was gay politicians, and there was only very few of them were brave enough to get up there and say. They could only get up there publicly and state that they were gay because they knew the hypocrisy and the laws were just so wrong. And so we have that situation now where someone like Fiona can openly say that she uses cannabis in her own life. And no one's going to do anything because you'd seem like a total... I mean, she can't lose an argument on cannabis law reform. Cannabis law reform activist of the year every time.
The more that we look at cannabis as a normal accepted substance, which it has been for all except 75 of the last 4,000 years, the better off we're going to be.
Medicinal cannabis is changing people's lives, and yet the police still go and raid someone like Jenny, who is saving hundreds of people's lives free of charge. Police had the discretion to not actually go forward with that, but for them to do so, it's really devastating and extremely frustrating, you know, because it just means that there is more work, a hell of a lot more work that has to be done.
We save somebody's life, but we're still considered a criminal. That's the way it is at the moment. That's why we have to change things.
Making cannabis available to those that choose to use it is a no-brainer. Like it's makes so much common sense. The majority of people that use cannabis don't have a problem with it, don't have too many concerns with it. So why do we criminalise so many people for using a substance which, if you compare it to alcohol, is much less riskier? In fact, it's almost risk-free if you compare it to alcohol. So to me, legalising cannabis just makes so much common sense. It really does.
There's recognition even amongst the police that what they're doing is not working. They need to look at a new approach. We can't keep drugs out of jails. We certainly won't be able to keep them out of music festivals. We probably can't even keep them out of schools. What we do need to be able to do is minimise the harm that they can cause and educate people about drugs in an honest and frank way. Not drugs are bad, don't do them.
We've taken a stand, not because it was a sensible thing to do, but because it was the right thing to do. I've been a nurse prior to Ben coming down sick for well over 20 years, and I was extremely well aware of the medicinal properties of cannabis through treatments for things like MS, Parkinson's, motor neurone disease, intense pain, nausea. The list is endless. Cannabis is simply the greatest treatment that we have for many different conditions, and we need to make it more readily available, not hide it behind secrecy or massive price tags. Keep hiding behind it and you will find that you're going to get steamrolled by this, because this snowball has well and truly started rolling and it will not stop.
Yeah, I mean, let's get it done.
Let's get it done.
We are reaching a tipping point for incredible drug law reform. We are at a point where we will see better drug policy, not only in Australia but around the world.